free, Skaro! Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 898. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris is on assignment, shall we say, in the UK this week. He and Kat decided to go off and see some concerts and see London from various parts of London. They're mostly in London, I think. I'm not too sure. I think they went to Portsmouth. I think they went to see a band in Portsmouth, which is on the coast, I think. I don't know much about Portsmouth. But anyway, so they're not here. They're not here, being Chris and Kat. Although they were literally just here. Before we press record, he's at a pub. He's at a pub right now as we record this. And we chatted on Zoom before we and filled us in on some of his secret details of his trip.
Secret.
Very secret. But so we just did a two-hander today because we thought we'd keep it tight and bright because we have a Lennie Mayne Miniscope. Chris is on this episode on that because we, Warren, I don't know if you know this, but we timed this amazing bit of synergy here to release part one of our Lennie Mayne Miniscope, which discusses, amongst other episodes, The Curse of Peladon, which is on the season 9 set, which is coming out in the UK on Monday.
We certainly did time that.
Right?
Actually, maybe we did. I don't know.
We did a little bit, yeah. Because, you got to put it out sometime, so we came out today. So that's coming later on in this episode. By the way, I know that I had sort of hinted at maybe Erica and I would be at Regenerations in Swansea in September of this year. That's no longer on the cards. Holiday time is tough to get for Erica, and it's like timing didn't work out. So no longer going to the UK in 2023, which is okay because you and I, Warren, will probably be in Glasgow in 2024.
Indeed.
For Worldcon.
For Worldcon.
And in the UK as well. I assume you'd probably want to go to the general UK and not just Scotland next year.
Oh, yeah. I think I'll check out the UK as well. And my sister might be coming with me, so that'll be fun.
For the whole thing?
Well, she'll find things to do in Glasgow because she couldn't care less about Doctor Who or indeed Worldcon.
Well,
but she will find all sorts of interesting things on her own to do.
Well, since the 50th anniversary, I don't think Worldcon cares much about Doctor Who either. So she.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, something in common.
But she also doesn't care about Worldcon things like literary sci-fi. Not really her bag.
No. Well, to be fair, it's not really mine either. But it's Glasgow, right? Never been to Glasgow.
No, nor have I. So check it out and try not to get my head beat in by Glaswegians.
Is that? Oh, that does tend to happen. I don't know.
Well, they're a tougher bunch than the Edinburgh. However you say somebody from Edinburgh.
Oh, hello, Scotland. How annoyed are you?
I'm annoying them already.
How annoyed are you?
Residents of Edinburgh. How about that?
What about?
They seem to be a more peaceful bunch.
Is that a fact though? Is that for real?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm going off train spotting and Brits. Actually, what am I doing listening to Brits about people from Scotland?
Right. They were colonized by blankers.
It's like listening to Edmontonians about Calgary or vice versa. Although Calgary is terrible.
Thank you very much. It is terrible. It's our sister city to the south. It's awful. Although Calgary Expo is happening, they're announcing a whole bunch of guests, and none of them are Doctor Who related. So I'm not going to Calgary Expo. This week on the episode, which is supposed to be shorter, is not because we've got a Miniscope coming up. But we were going to talk about the Red Nose Day thing, which we will. Why not right now? The only Doctor Who related thing. There was a Doctor Who skit. There was a Eurovision audition skit with various different people showing up to do auditions to get onto Eurovision, and one of them was the Dalek. And but the big one is that David Tennant, of course, is hosting in a very sharp black and red suit, by the way, that I was quite a fan of. But at the very beginning of it, the cold open, so to speak, Lenny Henry, who was away doing a thing and thus only contributed a couple things on screen, a la the First Doctor and the Three Doctors. Regenerated into David Tennant's Doctor. In his full suit, David Tennant was wearing his full Doctor Who costume, which is what
his
all
14 suit, yeah.
His 14 suit, which is what all the pictures were taken of. That's what it was from. So
I have two things with that. One, I keep trying not to say Lennie Mayne instead of Lennie Henry because we just talked about Lennie Mayne.
Right.
And secondly, my stupid fan brain is, well, but wait a minute, Jodie Whittaker turned into the 14th Doctor, David Tennant. How can Lennie Henry, who is also kind of a doctor from his sketch from the 80s
right.
in that awesome outfit, how could he, because he technically is a doctor, so which, is he a timeless child? What's going on here? Or is it just nonsense?
I think he's a pre-Hartnell Doctor. I think you can look at it as canon. Same as that Dalek auditioning for Eurovision. So, yes, it's all canon.
Yes, the answer is yes.
The entire thing, all canon. This morning, as we recorded this actually on a proper Sunday, like the olden times. The official BBC Twitter account dropped a teaser saying tomorrow being March 20th, is Doomsday. DOOM''S space day. And everyone was going, what? The clock stops at 11. Interesting. But what it's most likely promoting is a new audio release. It's called Doctor Who 4 From Doomsday, written by Darren Jones. There's 4 different stories with a linked theme, Doom. That's coming out on September 26, 2023, or the 20th anniversary of the announcement of the return of Doctor Who. But no more details are known other than that. So
yeah, we don't know if it has anything to do with 4-2 Doomsday. I would be surprised if it did.
I don't think it would.
Just playing on the title, basically.
just Urbankan stories.
Yeah,
the lost story.
Because everybody loves the Urbankans. Those fan favorites, the Urbankans.
Yeah, or maybe it's just like they go back to Australia and ancient Maya and China and to Greece for bygone.
Everybody's a robot for some reason.
If it's a robot, all 4 stories are no, it's not. I am wondering if, because the BBC is actually tweeting about this, is like, I wonder, and the fact that the clock stops at 11, is this the return of Matt Smith to the Doctor Who universe?
I doubt it. I think we're reading into it as Doctor Who fans are wont to do.
Yeah, it's true. But it stops at 11, Warren. But then again, if you're counting down to Doomsday, I mean, that's where things stop.
But if there's one thing Doctor Who fans are great at doing, is it's grabbing one tiny little detail and blowing it up into something it isn't. So that might be what we're doing right now.
Also true. Also very true. Anyway, if you listen to this on Mondays, people in the UK, we don't know anything yet. So don't laugh at us if we get everything wrong, but credit us if we get everything right. Thank you very much. Also this past week, the Mirror, I think it was the Mirror that kicked this off because it was everywhere. The fact that the BBC bosses were quote unquote planning a unit spin-off with Gemma Redgrave. It was so hard to find the actual source of this, but I think it was Nicola Methven at the Mirror, and she has a relatively good track record with her scoops. And so one of the 2 spin-offs, which apparently is happening, is a unit-based one. Which Warren, it kind of makes sense, right? To do.
Well, I mean, they've basically been doing a backdoor pilot since since she showed up in the first with 11 with Matt Smith.
Power 3.
They've basically essentially had a unit cohesively put together with continuous characters since then, right? Yeah, they had it before, but it was all just kind of here's unit in the background and Tennant doing whatever. So yeah, this has kind of been not in the works, but gelling. Let's put it that way. Since then. Mm-hmm. And that's a while back. That's almost 10 years ago now, I think.
That is, Warren, I hate to break it to you.
Actually, it's more than 10 years ago.
It's over 10 years ago. It's over 10 years ago now. Yeah, back in 2012. I mean, I've mentioned it's. You know what? It's funny actually. I'll segue this into a Google Earth comment. In that, if I looked anyway on Google Earth, at Wolf Studios in Wales, where they shoot Doctor Who now, there's a big old prop helicopter pad on the parking lot that has a big giant unit logo on it. But then I sent the link to Erica and says, "Can you open this on your phone and see what happens?" And she opened it, as there it is right there. Wait a minute. it's a picture taken from a different day, and the unit helicopter pad is no longer there. There's something else.
Scrubbed by censorship.
Or
we need Congress. We need Congress or shadow banning unit.
Oh, maybe Android phones are banning Doctor Who from that, but Apple as or Safari, different browsers or something like that. So
who knows?
It's all very confusing. But so yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that there would be a unit spinoff, but we shall see. I still don't think we would see any spinoffs before we see actual Doctor Who coming in November.
That makes no sense. Whatsoever.
No. So we'll see. It makes sense though. It does make sense. My guess is new Ncuti Gatwa season in the spring, perhaps, followed by maybe a unit spinoff in the summer, followed by another spinoff in the fall, followed by season 2 of Ncuti Gatwa in 2025.
Yeah. You got to think about this the way they sort of roll out Star Wars and Marvel stuff on Disney, because that's what they're going to be going for here. I mean, yeah, there's the BBC component to it too, but if you look at how they do that, where they have sort of like a little gap of 2 or 3 months, and then a new show that's appealing to somebody else is in, like the Skeleton Crew thing that's coming, I think, sometime later in the year for Star Wars.
The Star Wars, yeah.
They got to get through Mandalorian first, So yeah, they don't want to crowd this stuff out.
No.
Not like Star Trek did that one time when it was 3 shows at once.
I know, it was ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, even Bob Iger has said that they're scaling back on the Marvel shows, because they're probably saying, let's make them a little more special and not just turn them out for fun. Plus, we're trying to cut costs because the streaming wars are not going as we wanted them to. So,
and I don't see the BBC cranking stuff out either. I think they'll be sort of pacing it out, if for no other reason that they got less money than Disney does.
Well, I mean, Russell made a good point. I think it was a Doctor Who magazine where he said, that the spin-off sort of died when he left, and he says that's probably a good thing because they're a public broadcaster. They can't really be seen to sort of spend all the money on 3 shows of the same universe. They're making different ones, but now that you have Disney on board and Sony with kicking into Bad Wolf and stuff like that, well, now you can actually make more directed Doctor Who content.
And better for worse, that's the way the wind is blowing in Hollywood anyway. So
yeah, it is. One other thing that that Russell the Davies said is that there won't be he said this somewhere else. I think it was in an SFX magazine. I want to quote my sources on this. Is that there won't be a Sarah Jane style spinoff in the way that there won't be one targeted for kids. There won't be this won't be unit for adults or something like that. I think they will appeal to the same demographic. All their spin-offs.
So it's more like Marvel in that they'll be slightly different, but all in the same universe and all more or less the same tone.
Yeah, which is good. It's good, to be honest, because whenever you remember when we would see Sarah Jane Smith and or John Barrowman in the same Doctor Who story, it's
yeah, you're like,
It feels
and that was before Barrowman Revelations. Yeah, it was just like the genres shouldn't mesh.
Shall we say Captain Jack then instead? Captain Jack and Sarah Jane Smith are the same thing. Captain Jack wouldn't appear on Sarah Jane Adventures, I'm pretty sure. So now we won't have that problem anymore. So we'll see. We'll see what happens to that. Still, we're just under 8 months away from November 2023. November 23rd, 2023, I should say. For
madness. Absolute madness.
I know, for new Doctor Who. And then it will never stop, Warren. Enjoy this relative downtime, folks. I know, because it's gonna get busy on this podcast. As a Doctor Who fan, it's gonna get busy.
That means, as I look at my watch for no reason, that by around August, fan anger at lack of stuff will be at a peak, or maybe let's say September. They'll be enraged over their stories they made up in their own heads, and then trailers will come out in October, and then people will be happy again. The Cosmics Ballet, as usual, will march on.
I'm assuming and hoping, because I'm still trying to get a media pass to go to San Diego Comic-Con, is that there'll be something at Comic-Con.
And that's what, July?
That's July, mid-July.
Yeah.
That will really officially sort of kick off everything, and then the trailers and stuff, the launch of Disney. Yeah.
It's likely, actually, yeah.
But your prediction in August, because people have devoured the trailer, and then will be now I need to write these stories in my head based on the frames of clips that I've seen. Listen, this 18 frames of this episode looks like this is going to be this.
And not just to blame individual fans, the click farms will also be out in full force, milking whatever they can get out of it, no matter how wrong it is.
Oh,
which
yeah.
will just add to the fan anger, and it's brace yourselves, people. It's not gonna be fun. Brace for impact. As
we found from our Chris Chibnall interview, the click farms will make any content and lots of content out of one thing. So
out of nothing.
Exciting though, isn't it? It's exciting that in Doctor Who's 60th year, it can still do this. I think anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of click farms though.
No, but at least Doctor Who is worthy of being clicked farmed. I don't know what that means. I mentioned before the season 9 box set. To us, it's John Pertwee season 3 is coming out in the UK tomorrow. They do these now. They do additional trailers for these things that come out the weekend before they actually arrive, and they put a new one called "Don't Underestimate the Doctor." It's great. It's a great trailer.
I just watched it about 10 minutes ago. It is brilliant. It's very, very, very 70s, which is glorious.
Yeah, absolutely. So
especially for old people like me who enjoy 70s nonsense.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. Do you have to be old to enjoy stuff from the 70s?
No, you can enjoy it for what it is. People can enjoy 70s films because they're great or whatever, but I'm just saying it also hits all the nostalgia buttons.
It does. It's very well done. Very well done indeed. Wasn't done by Benjamin Cook. I know he does a lot of them, but I don't think he did this one because he didn't tweet about it. So I wonder who did it. Whoever that was, commendable stuff. So that's coming out tomorrow in the UK. It's in North America in June. The William Hartnell set, season 2, is coming out March 28th, I think, here in these parts of the world. I am very much looking forward to it, Warren, because it means I can lop out a whole chunk of DVDs from my shelf. It will never be the same. What?
I like how your number one anticipation is not the stories or the special bonuses. It's managing your own OCD.
Oh, I know. It's going to be... You know what? I've actually... I have in my Amazon saved for later bin, Blu-ray cases, that would hold 8 or 10 discs or something like that, because I actually thought in a brief moment that I would order these and put all the DVDs of the seasons into those to approximate what it would be like to have everything in such a compact
I spare myself
format.
So much grief by just not doing any of this.
This is how my brain works, all right? Sometimes it's kind of fun.
I have equally weird but different compulsions, so fair enough.
We all do. Let's talk. Oh, Doctor Who Magazine. Doctor Who Magazine put out a showrunner special all about showrunners. Some of them with interviews with people who would work as showrunners, some of them with showrunners themselves. I have yet to have a chance to properly read it. I do know though that speaking of this for 5 weeks running now. I've lost count. We have to mention our Chris Chibnall interview, which I already did, but it is actually quoted in this issue of Doctor Who Magazine, the Chris Chibnall one. So Eddie Robson did the article on Chris Chibnall and directly quoted our podcast interview. So there we go. Keep that going. 5 weeks running now. We've talked about our Chris Chibnall era interview, and it's mentioned in this wonderful Doctor Who showrunners magazine special edition. So links in the show notes if you want to get that. The whole thing is wonderful, I imagine, as well. I have yet to read it. Some audio stuff. On top of probably the 4 from Doomsday stuff, which is being announced on Monday, the War Doctor Begins, Comrades in Arms is due May 2023.
I have a confession. I have not gotten through the previous box set yet. It is on my phone. I got a phone. My phone is choked with bookshelf doctors to the point where it would be more work to delete all of that stuff off the phone than it would be just to get a new phone, which I had to do anyway. My new phone has 256 gigs on it. So I have now, including the older War Doctor adventures.
Like the John Hurt one you're talking about? Or
no, I mean the previous one to this with Jonathan Corley, who was excellent.
Yes, he is.
I have 12 different big finishes sitting in the device tab that I have yet to listen to. It's just a wall of shame. I have not done it yet.
Well, listen, there's people who have there's Chris who complains about DVD sets and Blu-ray sets not coming out, and then they just sit there and with their packaging on it. People with books, people who buy books, and they say, "Oh, look at this."
I have an entire shelf that's to be read. It's ridiculous,
right? Everyone does. It seems so.
And I have a to be listened here. Lots and lots of good stuff that I just have not gotten around to.
Well, add another one to the pile. 3 stories, Comrades in Arms, starring Jonathan Corley.
2 separate sets of Star Cops that I haven't listened to yet.
Oh my God, good old Star Cops. I mean, I only watched I was watching 3 shows at once there because they were airing one episode a week. The Last of Us had the good the good graces to end properly. So now I'm down to 2, which is Mandalorian and Picard, the surprisingly good Picard. And
I gotta say, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but the quality. I just watched the latest one. The quality is consistent, and I'm a little worried.
I know.
Like, what's going on here? What fast one are you pulling on me, Picard? By now, I'm disappointed. Usually,
it's got to crash sometime, right? Come on, these things always do. Also from Big Finish, Torchwood, Among Us Part 2, starring a whole bunch of people, including Tracy Ann Oberman. And, oddly enough, see, they mention everybody's roles that they're playing. And then it says, and Gareth David Lloyd, who has no role listed. Of course, Gareth David Lloyd played Yanto, and Yanto, I don't know if you know this, died during Tortured Children of Earth. So how can he be in this? How,
also,
Warren?
Oddly, Tracy Oberman is playing Mrs. Purchase from Toast of London. Very strange.
Just that. Yep. Just that.
Just her in bed, smoking, being disinterested.
Yep. She's not. She's playing Yvonne Hartman, of course. Warren is jesting, but that's fine. Anyway, four different stories are coming in Torchwood. Among Us 2 coming also in May. Everything's coming. Oh, June. This one's coming out in June. June 2023 from Big Finish. This is a fun little thing that popped on the BBC Archive YouTube channel, which is a wonderful goldmine of archive stuff that has all sorts of things. We didn't share it on the show, but I think I shared it with you, Warren, and Chris as well, though you were more appreciative because there was a behind the scenes of how they made Match of the Day, like circa 1974.
Oh, that was glorious.
So you saw like all these old-timey cameras and like the actual BBC
so
tape
many
room.
Jumpers, so much cigarettes,
so many
tube cameras.
Anyway, this morning they posted one from March 25th, 1971. They're talking about how polluted London is and stuff. And the person who they were talking to for a good chunk of this was, at the time, Doomwatch writer, but to us, Doctor Who writer and Cyberman co-creator, Kit Pedler. Kit Pedler, I've barely seen anything of Kit Pedler on any other DVD documentary. They always show like the same 2 pics of Kit Pedler. Here's that first one, and here's one where he's cropped out Jerry Davis, and that's it. And so to actually see and hear Kit Pedler speak, and perhaps give the Blu-ray documentary makers much more footage to go on for their B-roll of Kit Pedler saying stuff. It was kind of neat. So links in the show notes if you want to watch that yourself off the BBC Archive YouTube channel about how polluted and unfit for human habitation London was in 1971.
Which I find interesting because if you look at the because I remember when I was in Beijing and everything was hazy, and the reason for that is the exact same reason London fog happened in the mid 1800s, is that it was just coal dust everywhere, right? So that is much like having walked through it in Beijing. That is worse than whatever pollution you could throw at me otherwas.
Well, you weren't
Not
in
to
London.
contradict Dr. Kit Pedler.
No, Kit Pedler knows what he talks about. Perhaps he was. When you watch it and how much he's complaining about pollution and stuff, like, he's saying like, I haven't actually walked on Earth for 3 days. I've been walking on concrete and everything else. Like, it's interesting insight into how his mind was working when he was thinking up, Cyberman 5 years prior to that. Interesting. Anyway, that's it for the news. But we will, as always, we'll dip back into the past with the Timelash. What happened this week in Doctor Who history from March 19th to March 25th, just before the big day, which is March 26th, which is the return of Doctor Who in 2005. But yes, we start. I'll tell you what. I'll start off with March 19th, 1966, the debut broadcast of the Ark episode 3, The Return. A lot of people often say, like, did the viewing public know about the cliffhanger at the end of episode 2? Did they just think that the Ark was a 2-part story and they wrapped it up nicely, and then Dodo comes back, oh, we're back in the Ark, and they see that there's a big giant monoid statue at the end? I don't know if that's actually what people thought, or maybe they just didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, people are just casually watching this, probably over tea or whatever. So, I mean, yeah. So, who was following it also without any way to refer back to it with a VCR or anything? Like, yeah.
Who knows? I always like to know what's in the mind of people in the UK when they're watching Doctor Who. Although,
I wonder who's going on strike this week. That's what they were thinking of.
That's probably, yeah. Although that was the 70s. But anything jumping out at you? Because I do have a couple things here, Warren. But
probably the same thing as you. Elizabeth Sladen is contracted for Mask of Mandragora and the Hand of Fear. I'm like, wow, contracted for it. Like,
I know.
She leaves. This is a little fly by night.
Every time I see that. March 19th, 76 is when Elizabeth Sladen decides, you know what? I want to stay for 2 more stories because this Mask of Mandragora one seems like fun. So she literally came back just so she could be in 2 episodes.
It is fun.
Yeah. Because, think, ooh, Italy, that's kind of fun. And then, of course, she leaves in the Hand of Fear. So they extended her contract, especially for those 2 stories. She was originally planning on leaving at the end of season 13, but stuck around, and good for her as well. I just want to point out there's an incorrect date in here, March 19th, 2005. It should be 2004 that Christopher Eccleston agreed. It would be very difficult for him. Actually, probably March 19th is 2005 is the day he decided not to be the Ninth Doctor.
Exactly what I was going to say.
But Ot 4 is when he agreed to be the 9th Doctor Who. Something to say. When did they announce that? I've forgotten that. I know you probably said this.
Technically, the 10th, if you count the word Doctor.
I don't remember when they actually publicly announced Christopher Eccleston being the Doctor.
I don't
anymore.
either. I do remember it happening, but I don't remember when.
Yeah, because I didn't know who he was. But anyway, Catherine Tate on this day, March 19th, 2007, was contracted to play Donna Noble in Series 4.
Still my favorite new series companion.
Yeah, she replaced Penny. Penny was going to be the original companion for Season 4, and then which never got past casting stage because Russell just assumed that we would never get Catherine Tate back for a whole season of Doctor Who, and so wrote basically a replacement for Donna, and then, you know what, I want to play Doctor. Oh, okay, well, bye Penny, and hello Donna. To be seen in November of this year, Warren.
I know. I'm excited.
Potentially 1 weekend only.
I mean, much as I had my qualms, and still do a little bit about Tennant coming back as the Doctor again, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, you were pretty upset about it.
I'm still pretty excited to get some closure on the whole Donna Noble mind wipe, what have you. Yeah, I think this is a make good by Mr. RTD.
I wonder because there was what was it now? There was a Zoom chat or something to do with Children in Need this past weekend. I think Zoe Ball was there with David Tennant, and they were talking about, and they briefly mentioned Doctor Who, and Tennant sort of goes, "Oh yeah, we're back in November." But last time, I don't know, I'm doing his voice. Donna Noble her mind would fry if she even thought of the Doctor, so we'll have to deal with that somehow. And that was his little teaser. So it is definitely a thing.
I mean, that's in the trailer, more or less, right?
It kind of is, too, actually, to be honest. But I just like that they're talking about it. That's all. Big day in history, March 20th, 1965. Episode 6 of The Web Planet, The Center, aired on BBC One, which meant that The Web Planet was finally over.
Fair.
Yet it probably got like 13 million viewers because everyone watched it. It's just like it's massive ratings for The Web Planet. But... it's not looked as kindly upon these days. Happy birthday, Freema Agyeman, by the way. She can't be 44? She's 44. Wow. Look good for 44. She's in a new show on Sky with Lily Allen. I saw on her Instagram feed, Freema Agyeman. It's coming out in late March, I think, or something like that. So, Freema Agyeman, of course, playing Martha Jones.
Good for her.
Absolutely good for her.
It's kind of crazy. I remember her announcing her birthday at 40. I'm like, what, it's been 4 years since that? Wow.
I know. That's what I was like. I had to think about this. Like, is that date right? Because but maybe that was actually 4 years ago.
The time has no meaning anymore.
None at all. To answer our earlier question, Warren, when was Christopher Eccleston announced as the Ninth Doctor? It happened the very next day after he agreed to be the Ninth Doctor, March 20th,
there you go.
2004. Wow. It was announced that Chris Eccleston is indeed the Ninth Doctor Who. It was announced probably just as a news story in the entertainment section on the BBC News page, which is probably now archived. There was no big giant live special or anything. So really, in keeping with that initial announcement, it's kind of great that Ncuti Gatwa was announced basically just on, oh, by the way, there's Doctor Who, he's right over there. There's no grand, giant live special or anything like that. It's just,
I was fine with that, to be honest. I think it was kind of cool. Like, they snuck that in there. Much like they snuck the Night of the Doctor video out to everybody.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you don't need the big bells and whistles.
Well,
and
it
stuff.
generates its own hype, which Shooty got was introduction certainly did. One thing I like here, which nobody can see but you and me, is that there's a typo, so it's 1078. Mary Tam is contracted for the reboss operation of Pilot, which means they traveled back in time in the TARDIS to Contractor just to make it really binding.
Yeah, and like,
Well, see, it's before Magna Carta. I think we got you on this one.
I thought, you know what? Like, we're only going to pay you like 3 farthings per episode or something like that. It's not going to be good.
Is that before Magna Carta? I might be getting my dates wrong.
12:15. Warren, I watched The King's Demons. I know when Magna Carta was. All right.
I just didn't want to I didn't want angry historians writing into me.
No, it's 12.
Hey, idiot on a podcast, you got that wrong. Well, of course I did.
It's 12 years after the Battle of Hastings. I know this because I watched The Time Meddler. You see, Doctor Who is educational.
Of course, yes.
It's educational, folks. It's great. Oh boy, here's something that's looming. In 1979, March 20th, industrial action results in the cancellation of recording for The Creature from the Pit at the BBC television.
We could have not
film
had
shows
Creature from the Pit
in Ealing. I was like, oh, things are already looming. Industrial action, of course, that would eventually. I'm not sure if it's the same industrial action, but it would certainly take down Shada later in that season. So,
if I ever record an album of smooth blues, it'll be called Industrial Action.
Oh, I like that actually. Kind of want that to be my radiophonic band tribute act. I think is called.
Well, I'm inspired by
Action.
a friend and fan of the show, Len Aralaya, who's a jazz musician, and he named one of his albums "No Complications."
Oh,
which is
Len.
beautiful.
Well done, Len. That is fabulous. The March 21st, big day. Happy birthday in Stuart Black. He's dead now, but he was born 1950. But hey, speaking of our Chris Chibnall interview on Ready for Skaro, happy birthday, Chris Chibnall. Born
slightly older than me.
March 21st, 1970. Wow. He's quite young. He's like 10 years younger than his other two Doctor Who showrunners of the modern era, which is quite something, actually. So.
Well, he was a whiz kid, although I think RTD was probably also a whiz kid. Actually, was Moffat as well?
Moffat's first thing was like Press Gang when he came into TV, which is like...
Was he in his 30s when he did that?
I think so. I think he was.
Yeah.
Like a school teacher, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway. Happy birthday, Chris Chibnall.
Sorry to derail that.
No. March 21st, the debut broadcast of Marco Polo Episode 5, Rider from Shang 2. I mentioned that because, A, Waris Hussein is back directing episodes of Marco Polo, but B, on the Patreon feed for Toby Haydock's Happy Times and Places, for Too Much Information, he finally finds the identity of the actor, or the background and history of the actor who played the eponymous Rider from Shang 2. And it's amazing. It's amazing, like how we did not know about this actor, and then you find out about him, and he has this massive history, partially in the United States. Anyway, I won't spoil it. Go be a patron to Toby Haydock's podcast and listen for yourself, because he did he found out something that no one has ever known before. So
I have one from 1968.
What's happening in '68, Warren?
Recording for The Wheel in Space takes place at the BBC Television Centre Puppet Theatre in White City, London. I only mention this because I can just see some technician walking in and going, "Yes, clear out, bag puss," and just pushing all these puppets to one side, toss them in a corner while they film The Wheel in Space. Stepping on, I don't know any of their iconic British puppets. Andy Pandy.
The Rat. What's the Basil? No, not Basil the Rat. Who's the Rat? What's the little rat guy? What does he do?
So we're just going to embarrass ourselves. The only one I know is Bagpuss.
Yeah. I don't even know Bagpuss. I know of it, but yeah, they probably were shooting. I bet you they were probably shooting some model footage of the actual wheel, which does not look anything like the wheel does on the cover of the Target novelization, which made that
which
novelization.
Is the true canon, as we all know.
And it was so like, oh my
just
god,
like Unit Spaceship.
Yeah, yes, the Unit Spaceship on the what's not Ballantine? What's the Pinnacle books?
Ace Pinnacle, yeah, Pinnacle,
Pinnacle
right.
ones, yeah. Pinnacle novelization, so it's confused me as a kid for many, many years. Oh my god, March 21st, 1970, which I think is like 8 days after the Apollo 13. When did Apollo 13
debacle?
It happened in April.
Know.
It happened in April. That's what it was. because it got a bit of a kick from, Ambassadors of the Death kind of got a bit of a kick from Apollo 13 being a thing in the news. Anyway, episode 1 of Ambassadors of Death broadcast March 21st, 1970, with one of the great Doctor Who stories of all time, especially just because of the way they did the titles and the teaser mid-titles. If they ever carried anything on from any one story in Doctor Who history, they should have kept that going, because I love it to bits. Michael Ferguson.
That's fair.
R.I.P.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I got like Ambassadors of Death, but I just want to give you free reign to enthuse because you love it so much.
I love it so much. Ambassadors of Death. It's great. Hey, this is big news too. March 21st, 1975. Tom Baker is contracted for season 13 of Doctor Who. Hooray! He's a hit. He's a success. We'll pay you some more. We'll pay you some more for being Doctor Who.
Why not?
Yeah.
It seems like you might have some staying power, Tom.
And yet, that exact same day in history, in 1981, the debut broadcast of Logopolis, Episode 4, the end has been prepared for.
Oh, well.
Yeah. That was it. That was it for him. 1994, let's point this out. A series Bible for Doctor Who, prepared by Philip Segal, and writer John Leakley, who never shows up, and entitled "The Chronicles of Doctor Who?" is released. Yeah, telling all about
that's what happened. Yep,
Barusa and a bunch of Gallifrey nonsense or something for future writers of the show.
It's important we cram this into the first minute of the show. Just cram it on in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if that series Bible is on PDF form on the DVD. I can't remember if it is or not, but
wouldn't surprise me. But then again, it could be a rights thing too. I imagine that's one of the tougher ones to navigate around with. Tertiary ephemera.
Could be. I know they quote it a lot in the the production notes and stuff. So obviously it exists and it's in somebody's hands. But it'd be intriguing to read that. It's probably sitting on my hard drive and I've forgotten all about it.
Yeah, definitely.
2012, the last great year in British history, the BBC announces that Jenna Louise Coleman will play the new Doctor Who companion, later revealed to be Clara Oswald. I like Clara.
And revealed in such a wonderful fashion.
Well, I don't remember her announcement.
No, I just mean on the show itself.
Oh, yeah.
Sneaking her in there.
I know.
It was a brilliant play.
It really was. Really was. On to March 22nd, Mary Tam, the wonderful Mary Tam, born that day in history, 1950, taken from us far too soon in 2009, or whenever it was. 2009, 2011, I can't remember now when she died, but it was very sad. I was very sad. What else happened, Warren?
65 is an epic.
What happened in 65?
Epic.
Read it out for us.
Whereas Hussein recommends that John Lucarati set his untitled historical story during the 1857 Indian Mutiny. Shortly thereafter, Lucarati learns there is now an edict against Doctor Who historical adventures taking place after 1600, because, gee, I wonder why, and instead begins work on an untitled historical story set in Newfoundland. Where to begin?
Oh, I mean, the Indian Mutiny, that would have been interesting in 1960s Doctor Who, so, they would have done that. That's in India, of course, not...
Well, and I wonder how much this edict of past 1600 went like that's when England went full bore villainy. So.
Yeah, so let's just ignore all that. Let's just work on colonial stuff. I don't know. Man, we could have had it. We could have had an episode set in Newfoundland, which
I would have bet that would be a Vikings thing. Although in 65 was that a known thing?
Well, when was that? For those that don't know, there's an ancient, like dating back to 1000 AD, Viking settlement on the northern tip of the island of Newfoundland,
showing they visited before the Europeans. Well, I guess they
visited and settled, like they're properly settled in Newfoundland in 1000, centuries before Columbus came over and wrecked everything. The benefits of, let's face it, we're enjoying today. I mean,
we certainly are.
But yeah, an untitled. I wonder what that would have been. Untitled story set in Newfoundland.
I hope it's just set in Newfoundland, 1965. That'd be great. They're sitting there yelling about Confederation because it hadn't happened yet, or no, hadn't by that point.
1949. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it had. So it's just them drinking Screech, like the first Doctor, getting just plastered on Screech.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good. And nothing makes any sense. It's all subtitled because they're incomprehensible even to Canadians.
R.I.P. Gordon Pinsent, by the way, a legendary Canadian actor.
Sorry.
who was in Shipping News with Judi Dench and Kevin Spacey, and he by far had the most convincing Newfoundland accent, obviously.
Yes, and what's a Great Big Sea? I remember the Simpsons made Newfie jokes, and he took umbrage at that, and so I'm going to get a letter from Great Big Sea frontman, whatever his name is,
Alan Doyle. Yeah.
about how angry he is at me making fun of Newfies. I'm like, it's a national sport.
It is a little bit. I always wanted to go. Anyway, I clicked on the link.
So have I.
And it says that the synopsis would have been after landing in 1002 Greenland. The time travelers are captured by Leif Erikson and his Vikings. The Doctor needs plutonic rock to repair the TARDIS, but knows that this can only be found in Newfoundland. He convinces Erikson to lead an exploration party across the ocean.
So Newfoundland is a radioactive rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
After acquiring the necessary minerals, he then takes Erikson further on to Nova Scotia, where the Viking orders the time travelers to remain to help start a settlement. The Doctor uses the unusual tidal properties of the nearby Bay of Fundy, oh my God, to convince Erikson that he is a magician and the companions are returned to the TARDIS. This would have been the most Canadian thing ever made.
Oh, it would have. Is there a crossover with the Forest Rangers somehow? How does this work?
I don't know.
So I think they're basically playing on the fact that it's like, nobody knows anything about Newfoundland. I'm just going to write whatever I want. Magicians, Bay of Fundy, whatever. I got a map.
Man, wow, that is really a shame that never came to fruition. It was in '92. Luke Rod turned his Viking storyline into a short story for Doctor Who magazine called "Who Discovered America?"
Nice. Big Finish and CBC co-production. I think it has to happen.
I think it does too. I also want to point out that on that same page, which is on the website, links to a whole bunch of untitled, unproduced stories, which that was one. And there are two references to our Chris Chibnall interview on Radio Free Skaro episode 895.
Really? Wow.
Because Pete McTighe and Nina Mativier were developing stories for the COVID-19 scrap season.
Happen.
So that was mentioned in our interview. So there you go. There you go. Cramming that thing in the whole time. 2007, March 22nd, Russell T. Davies confirms that the BBC has commissioned Series 4 for Doctor Who. Hooray! Hooray for that. Because, Donna Noble's going to be in it, so that's pretty cool. So there you go.
Also, do we cover this already? 1968, Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln are instructed to cease work on the 6th episode of The Dominator.
We didn't talk about that.
Stop that immediately.
Stop it.
What are you doing to us? Stop this. No more Dominators.
The wonderful diplomacy of Derek Sherwin. Just stop. Stop writing it. We're not going to use it. Just stop. So they stopped and made it a 5-episode story instead. Yeah. And it's several decades later, the Dominators disappeared briefly from BritBox, so the story comes full circle there, I guess.
Well.
Moving on to March 23rd, speaking of the Season 9 box set coming out in the UK, Louis Marks, born March 23rd, 1928, went on to go write Planet of Giants and Day of the Daleks, as well as Planet of Evil. So there you go. The writer of Day of the Daleks would have been there.
1970?
Yes, what happened at 70, Warren?
Monumental. Roger Delgado is contracted to play the Master, the Doctor's new Time Lord arch nemesis in Season 8. Almost 50 years later, actually maybe 50 years later, we still have Masters of various stripes.
Well over 50 years later, Warren.
What a character.
I know. It's great. He's absolutely fabulous.
He's the chairman of the board. He is the Hartnell of that bunch.
He is. There is technically a pre-Delgado Master out there somewhere.
I suppose.
Probably, but they're great. And Roger Delgado was the first. And I'm not going to say, I know one always likes to compare and stuff like that and rank them and stuff. But they're all different in their own way. They all deserve to be celebrated,
Yeah, they do. I mean, Missy's my favorite, but yes. Just got to cram that in there. Also, it never ceases to delight me that the skeleton master from Keeper of Traken and
Deadly Assassin.
Thank you, Deadly Assassin. How can I forget my favorite episodes?
Right.
Is in fact the Roger Delgado master. They're the same person. I find that most amusing.
I know. It's great. That's Doctor Who, man. That's Doctor Who, baby. March 23rd, 1979, Anthony Reid is commissioned to write The Horns of Nimon. Yeah. Love it.
Yep. Well, we all know how that worked out.
Yeah. Someone missed, I forgot about the previous day, the Twin Dilemma, episode 1 broadcast. Colin Baker makes his debut in the Twin Dilemma 6 days after the end of one of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time, The Cage of Androzani. Anyway, episode 2.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I know. It's remarkable. The Twin Dilemma is... we have yet to do a commentary for the Twin Dilemma. I think we're holding it back for whenever we're in person again, lest... airfare problems or weather or COVID or something derails us yet again. One day,
we need to be drunk. We do need to be drunk for that one.
A little bit. You know what? I watched it recently on my my pilgrimage, and
it's not good.
Well, it's fine. It's fine. It is ridiculous though. You look at Mestor and you go, and the bird people, and you're thinking, what are we doing here? How did we move on from Cage of Androzani to this? It's remarkable. It really makes you believe that the of the two stories, Androzani and Twin Dilemma, that Androzani's the accident and Twin Dilemma is actually the show that they've been making the whole time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's bonkers. Anyway, moving on. March 24th, birthday of Rodney Bennett. He directed 3 Doctor Who stories: The Sontaran Experiment, The Ark in Space, and The Mask of Mandragora. Not to be confused with Richard Rodney Bennett, who did the music for the Aztecs. So, yeah, pretty good run for... I remember Rodney Bennett because even though he only directed 10 total episodes of Doctor Who, it was 3 stories, and thus it got him inclusion in the Miniscope. So, there. Important news.
Yes, indeed. I am currently trying to be myself and Chris.
Okay.
Because I'm going to look up... let's just jump back here.
All right. Warren's away from his mic looking up things, by the way.
Yeah. 1980, Christopher Priest is commissioned to write Sealed Orders. I was previously away from my mic because I had to look up what that was.
Yep.
Sealed Orders is the 6th and final serial of season 18 of Doctor Who, written by Christopher Priest. Well, that doesn't tell me what it's about. What the hell is it about? Come on.
Well, it was we did. I think we mentioned this a couple weeks ago on this. It was a political thriller set on Gallifrey.
Oh, right. Yes, fair enough. Yes.
In which the Doctor is seemingly ordered to kill Romana by the Time Lords, and this all fell through, and so they had to scrap it and fill in something else.
So all that effort for nothing.
Yeah.
Thanks for nothing. My own sense of initiative.
That's okay. I appreciate the initiative, Warren, but in this instance, it was misguided.
A failure, in fact.
That's fine. Let's move on to the last day. How about then March 25th, the birthday of one Patrick Troughton, born March 25th, 1920.
So if William Hartnell is the chairman of the board, does it make him the CTO? CFO? Where is he? Is he COO of this operation?
Chief Financial Officer of Doctor Who, I suppose.
I don't think... which doctor would make a good Chief Financial Officer? Not him. I think I would go with Davison. He seems more sensible. I want him handling my cash.
You know what? No, we're talking about doctors or actors?
Doctors. If we're talking doctors.
Because I was going to say, because Colin Baker played an accountant, an evil accountant on The Brothers in the 70s, pre-Doctor Who. He would spend our invested cash in silly outfits. His coat,
so I don't trust him with our cash.
No, I wouldn't either. You know what? I do feel like Dave the Fifth Doctor is a doctor for the Thatcher era. You know, very buttoned down.
Good point. Yes.
He's like, we never use this hat stand anymore. Let's get rid of it. Like cutbacks clearly are happening with Davison's Doctor.
Much as I love him, and I don't want to identify him with the Thatcher regime.
Yeah.
He does seem like the most sensible bean countery one of them of the bunch.
Yeah. Well, I think Sue Perryman called the third Doctor the posh Tory or something, wasn't he, or something like that? True. So maybe he would be the one.
I think Capaldi would be pretty circumspect with one's wallet.
And he's Scottish too, so there's that.
That was not what I was implying, but okay.
Aspect of things as well. Write in, folks. Who do you think would be the best chief financial officer of all the doctors? They have to be thrifty yet wise. Anyway. Anything else happening March 25th, Warren, you want to point out for the listeners at home?
No, not really. Linda Bellingham is contracted to play the Inquisitor for season 23. That's kind of cool. She was very good, Dad.
She was lovely. Lovely as the Inquisitor. Love the Trial of a Time Lord. I'm coming up to that pretty soon here. I'm in the midst of Vengeance on Varos right now in my daily pilgrimage, and so I'm looking forward to... I did those
first two. Vervoids is kind of tough to get through now.
You know what? Yeah, I don't know. I
You'll
don't
find
like feel
something good about it. You always do.
Well, I do. You know what? I've said this before on the podcast, but sometimes the incidental music, if it doesn't jive with me, it affects my opinion of the story. And that is one of them where I don't like Malcolm Clark's score at all for it. And so it's always kind of like been lower because of that. Whereas I really like Dominic Glynn's music from season 23. And so the bookends of those, Mysterious Planet and Ultimate Foe, really stick out. I was like, oh, I love these stories because Dominic Glynn's music is great.
Yeah, that's one of the few good things about Ultimate Foe, frankly.
Oh, I don't know. I love the whole season. Colin Baker is wonderful in every single episode in The Trial of a Time Lord.
That's true. I agree. He is.
Which just goes to show how much the higher ups at the BBC wanted to just kill off Doctor Who in general by saying, let's just fire the Doctor, and then maybe John Nathan Turner will go, and then if he goes, there's no one to produce Doctor Who, we can just kill it. But he stuck around for 3 more years anyway.
TV. The universal constant of machinations.
Yep, absolutely. As we'll find out, I suppose, as we close the Timelash for another week. But we talk about the inner workings of Doctor Who and how to make it by talking about part 1 of the work of Doctor Who director Lennie Mayne in the Miniscope.
Just as I thought. A Miniscope. Now this is outrageous. Who is responsible for this device?
That's right. It's the Miniscope, everyone. This week and the next, or I should say episode, because the people on the Patreon get this earlier and probably like the day after the next. We're covering the work of Doctor Who director Lennie Mayne, aka Leonard Mainprize, as it was known back in Australia, where he came from. He directed 4 Doctor Who stories. Usually we do these in chronological order. This time we're not. We're doing it slightly different because he directed both Peladon stories. And if you ask 80% of Doctor Who fans and you showed them a screen grab of one of the Peladon stories, they would get it wrong because they look almost identical. So we thought we'd compile those together. And then the second half we'll be doing the 3 Doctors and the Hand of Fear. Lennie Mayne. Also,
unless you have like a picture of King Peladon or Queen Thalira.
That's true. That's
the frame. One giveaway.
That's the type. But honestly, like there's like even Ortron
or
and
a little gray around the ears.
A little bit. I mean, Ortron and whoever the Hepesh. Sometimes I look like, wait a second, which one is which again? Sometimes even I was sort of thinking it's different. Same
one's
lighting
got Rex
director.
Robinson and one doesn't.
Does not, but then the other ones also have Rex Robinson.
All three that aren't Curse have Rex Robinson as well.
That's true. Yeah,
all got Rex appeal is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, we could do the Rex Robinson Miniscope on its own, really, just because of this. But
oh boy, why aren't we?
I don't know. I don't know why we're not doing that. Yeah, we don't, but we could, but we don't.
No, we're not.
We're not doing.
Can you imagine the undertaking if we actually started doing actors in this?
You know what?
No, that's a terrible idea.
It would have to be 3. You could do Rex Robinson. You could do Michael Sheard. You could do
your John Abernary.
Bernard Horsfall, I believe.
John Abernary. Bernard Horsfall.
Horsfall did 2 at least.
He did 3. Of course, he was.
Okay, well then he's in the Miniscope. Oh. What am I saying? I don't agree with this.
Your John Woodnuts.
Your John Woodnuts. Your not your John Woodvines though. It was only in 1, but. Anyway, what a fruitless thing this conversation will now keep me up at some point while I think about which actors have been in Doctor Who 3 times or more, playing different characters. Lennie Mayne. So yeah, this week here we're going to talk about the 2 Peladon episodes. He directed Curse of Peladon, and then almost immediately after production, Barry Letts said, "Wow, this is kind of cool. Let's keep the sets and everything, and maybe we'll make another episode in Peladon." And it took a couple years to do it, but when the time came, Barry Letts sought out Lennie Mayne and basically the same crew that made the Curse of Peladon, brought the sets out of storage, gave it a lick of paint, and boom, there you go. You got another story. So we'll be talking about both of those today. I can't remember which of you watched which episode.
Curse.
I did Monster.
Okay, Curse of Peladon. I think it's safe to assume that this is the preferred version of Peladon on screen. Okay. Well, Warren, having only seen one of them, will argue that Monster of Peladon is better. But
I mean, I saw Curse numerous times previous to this.
Yeah, that's true. I, of course, am a sucker for punishment. Watch them all, and also watch the wonderful documentary Looking for Lennie that's on the Series 10 Blu-ray set, which is very, very good. So, Chris, Curse of Peladon. What were your thoughts about Curse of Peladon, specifically the direction they're in?
Overarching, I kind of want to call him Lennie Plain.
Oh, dear.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
In a lot of ways, there's really not much going on, but in some ways, there's lots going on. There's really a mixed bag when it comes to Curse, quite honestly. I'll get into a little more detail in time, of course, but
Right.
one thing I'll start off with is he got such an amazing performance out of Katie Manning. She was so on the ball, and just the range of emotion she had to portray on the screen, but especially just interacting with King Peladon, David Troughton, Patrick Troughton's son.
Right.
Just like that one relationship alone, like she ran the gamut from like disappointment and anger and adoration and hope, and like, yeah, she was just amazing. And she also has spoken repeatedly how much she adored Lennie Mayne as a director.
Yeah, I think that'll be a running theme in this two-part miniscope about how much people love that guy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and she also was like, had a bit of a crush on David Troughton at the time, and David Troughton had a bit of a crush on Katie Manning at the time, but
They're
neither.
both very good-looking
that
people,
wouldn't
so
hurt
I
them.
can't say I blame either
Yeah,
of them. So.
yeah.
No, she is, but by the end of things, she was, Green Death. She was dating Stuart Bevan when that was filmed.
That's true. Yep. Too bad she couldn't have got Jimi Hendrix in Doctor Who, but although he was dead by that point, so I guess that would have been tough.
I keep telling you, he's 38 years old and he's dead.
He's 27. Remember the 27 Club?
He's 27.
I know. You got that joke.
Mama Cass,
Yeah.
Kurt Cobain,
Jim Morrison.
Amy Winehouse, too.
Amy Winehouse. Not Lennie Mayne. Lennie Mayne died at 49 for what it's worth, but...
in a boating accident.
Yeah, very sad. You know what? It's I mean, this is kind of across all four episodes. Maybe we'll pinpoint various things. There are a couple of interesting moves, but he's not your Paul Bernards of the era. He's not your, maybe even Michael E. Bryant, I think, had a bit more of a visual flair, perhaps, to him. In his stuff like for Green Death or for Colony in Space or something like that. But there are some nice stuff that I think he does. I think the lighting is very good. And when you watch, as I am doing as we record this, I'm in the midst of season 19 of my daily watch of Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, and it's the 80s. So like the lights are coming up, baby. They are up. And
it's the opposite of television today.
It is.
You're gonna be struck pink,
right? But then you look at Peladon. It's like the lights are really low. It looks medieval, even though it's a different planet. But like you get the impression that things are being lit by the torches that are on the wall and very little else. I mean, it's a unique looking story, especially in the John Pertwee era, where it's all Technicolor Claws of Axos kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden we're in this dark sort of pseudo medieval castle tunnels.
Well, and it's not just the tunnels; it's inside parts of the castle as well, where it just seems like it's lit by just the literal torches on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, there's lots of darkness and shadow.
Yep.
That he gets to play. The phrase I used was aggressive use of shadow, especially in the tunnel scenes. And yeah, it gives it an atmosphere, and because we're, at least kind of to a degree, we're dealing with like a mystery story in here as well. I think it adds to that, and just the like Peladon, King Peladon, not knowing about the existence of tunnels, and he's like the only person on the planet who doesn't apparently.
Nobody told me about the dark web. What? I didn't understand we could do this. Yeah,
but I mean, just the fact that there's all these things. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Right.
But yeah, the lighting is and so you the way you phrased it, and maybe you know more than I do on this one. or you probably do, was it
Topic
actually
ideas, eh?
not just the fire that, like, did they actually still have studio lighting that they just brought down quite a lot?
Oh yeah, I know they wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to light something just by fire on
God, no.
on 625 line tube cams.
The camera would itself go on strike.
It would, yeah, because I mean, at the time, the BBC had to like keep the lights on to a certain point. Otherwise, like the transmitter would assume that the signal has gone black and the transmission would stop. So they actually there was a legitimate concern, perhaps amplified a little too much by John Nathan Turner in the 1980s, as to why they had to keep the lights going a little higher in some scenes, aka Warriors of the Deep. But
that is British workmanship at its finest.
that is, yeah.
I had intended to watch this with the info text on, but the copy I made for myself had the subtitles twice and no info text, and I was too lazy to grab the DVD off the shelf.
Good man.
Laziness. I watched it all. with the info text. My favorite thing on there. I love the info text, but I did glean some stuff on there. I actually thought the film scenes, because the two Peloton stories are noteworthy in that they are the only two Pertwee stories that aren't on location. There's some stuff in Ealing Film Studios, but nothing is actually on location. But the actual, like the scene where the TARDIS lands, there's some surprisingly good ADR and sound work on that. Like it's not usual for Doctor Who to have ADR. They probably didn't even call it that back then. But I thought that was actually quite well directed. And I didn't know this. I did read this off the subtitles. This isn't necessarily a Lennie Mayne thing, but the storyboard sequence for the first model shot, where you see the Citadel and then you see the TARDIS land, that was the first ever storyboard sequence for a model shot in Doctor Who history. That was the first time they used storyboards.
They just winged it before that, eh?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, what are we doing here, man?
Does that really surprise us in any way? No.
Not really, no. I mean, using storyboards is a thing directors do. I know that Steven Spielberg famously did not use a storyboard for Schindler's List, for instance. He was sort of,
and he had for absolutely everything else previous to that.
Yeah, so it's up to a director's preference, I suppose, when it comes to storyboards and stuff. But that was the first time. So, which is, I thought that was interesting. I mean, the one thing that we, maybe we don't see as much visual flares, but the actors loved Lennie Mayne. I mean, just watching the Lennie, Looking for Lennie documentary, he was a dancer before this, before he moved into directing in the 50s and 60s in Australia. And when he moved to the UK, he was a choreographer for some things. He choreographed a 1965 TV special starring Bernard Cribbins, which is where he knew him. And I think he just had this sort of like, this sort of dancing company feel, and he swore a lot apparently too, which probably made him popular too.
Like him already.
Lots of people just, lots of people just loved him. And there's one way, I was also at the same time, ironically, I'm watching Earthshock. I just started watching Earthshock today. Just to timestamp that. And Peter Grimwade, who every actor legendarily hated because they just did not like the way he directed, even though the results were great, that his directorial style really clashed with all the actors. But he still got good performances out of them. Lennie Mayne's the other way. He creates this warm, open, just an open feel to everything, and everyone's very happy and lovely and getting to work and everything like that. And that's how you get good performance out of people. Like you get like your Katie Manning with her performances as Jo in this. It's because people enjoy the environment so much, and they enjoy the attitude that the director is portraying, that you get good stuff. And I think that's kind of what Lennie Mayne does in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
There's a fight scene. There's
many fight scenes.
There's many
a lot
fight
of
scenes.
Fight scenes, yeah.
But it's the fact. We'll talk about the Three Doctors next week. But the fact that there's this weird fight scene that sort of exists in a black void that's, I think, shot on the same soundstage in Ealing, 1 year apart. One in Three Doctors, one in between the Doctor and Grun. Is it Grun? And not Braun, or I can't remember the
Grun. It's Grun. Yeah.
Grun.
Versus the El Singulero fight you're talking about?
Versus the El Singulero fight.
Is it as long as the El Singulero fight, which goes on forever?
It's longer, I believe, but then
really?
it's also shot in regular speed, whereas Singulero is
true, yes.
slow-mo.
And of course, being a John Pertwee action scene, you get to play which parts have John Pertwee and which parts have Terry Walsh.
Yeah, I think that was actually the fight scene that aggravated John Pertwee's back to the point where it never really recovered during his time at Doctor Who. So, credit Lennie Mayne for breaking the back of Doctor Who's John Pertwee.
Hooray! Wait a minute.
Just complete aside, just one story element I find utterly incredulous with watching Curse.
Only one?
Yeah,
one that comes to mind relative to what Stephen was talking about anyway. So you've got the fight scene between the Doctor and Grun in the little dungeon pit thing. And then in episode 4, when there's the revolution that Hepesh was trying to lead, there's a little fight scene between one of the actual proper soldiers and Grun. Right. And Grun just cleans the floor with the soldier guy. Soldiers punching Grun in the stomach, and nothing's happening. He's not taking him down. Whatever, but the Doctor, no problem. He's like, yep, I will win this fight, and does.
Because he's a Time Lord, damn it.
And he has Venusian Aikido, which he probably didn't even use.
Yeah, but it just seems like, these soldiers should be a little bit less anemic than what gets shown.
That's the magic of plot conveniences.
Yep.
I suppose.
Yeah.
One thing that happens in this that I'm not sure happens much, if at all, elsewhere.
Okay.
Maybe in Monster, because I didn't watch it, but there's a few times when in studio, studio, the camera seems to be positioned a lot higher up than the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, I will be getting to this too. Yes.
Yeah.
So a couple instances I threw in my notes when near the end of episode 1, when the Agador statue is being pried loose. It really because you can see the set is built up, so there's this second level basically, and it looks like the camera is up there. There's a bit where the camera pans up, but there's a bit where the camera looks like it is up. And then in episode 2, when the delegates adjourn from the throne room to deliberate whether they're going to stay or not, there's a top-down overhead kind of high shot, which looks really, really good as well.
It breaks up the potential visual monotony of a closed room with no windows, and so he uses that sort of that overhead crane shot to nice effect, I thought.
And when the Doctor and Grun get lower themselves into the pit, there's a top-down shot as well. But as you say, that's Ealing Film Studios, so that's completely different setup, completely different type of camera as well. Where the studio-based stuff seems a little more special to me, because you don't expect those 8,000-pound tube studio cameras to be able to do a hell of a lot for flexibility.
Right.
But, I'm not sure how it actually got achieved, if they just put it up on a platform or what.
It's on a crane. It's an actual crane. There's an actual crane camera. It's maybe goes up 12 feet. Yeah, I've it's kind of not like a scissor lift kind of thing. It's not like a crane, but it's a
cherry picker, right?
Kind of like a cherry picker. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I'm this looks like a crane shop, but there's no way in hell it's an actual crane shop.
That's what it was. No. That's what it was. I mean, they
kind of, I guess.
Yeah, obviously they weren't going 30 or 40 feet up or anything. You were basically seeing the top limit of how far that camera could go. But yeah, no, it was totally a crane shot. One shot I like, before we get on, I know Warren, you didn't watch Curse specifically for this, but you probably have
I might as
for
well
it.
have, because I watch Monsters.
Yeah. I like how, I don't know if this is in the script or the way it's revealed or not, but I kind of like how nonchalant the first appearance of the Ice Warrior is. It's, we sort of focus on the Doctor and Joe hiding behind a curtain or something like that, and then we just sort of see an Ice Warrior lumber by, and there's no great zoom in, there's no great shock reveal to it. It's just there's an Ice Warrior there. And I kind of like how, given how ambiguous their intentions are at the very start and for quite a while in this story, I like how...
Again, plot convenience.
Yeah, I like how Mayne isn't treating it like... He isn't trying to throw the wool over your eyes. He's not sort of like saying you should be thinking that these are going to be the villains. He's also not treating them as, like... they are totally the good guys. They just walk by, and you think, and so you're left to your own devices and the Doctor's reaction as to what role they're going to play in this. And I kind of like that. I like how, it's kind of like when the Dalek enters in Revelation of the Daleks. It just sort of slides by like 4 minutes in. And yep, there's a Dalek. Graham Harper just says, it's nonchalant. You kind of know they're going to be here, so why are we building up to it? It says Revelation of the Daleks right on the opening credits. Let's just show the damn Dalek and get on with it. And since the Ice Warriors aren't the focal point, he just, it's just a random wide shot of him walking by and then out of vision. I think that was kind of effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One other shot I'm going to throw out there, I think it was early episode 3 when the Doctor is being told he's going to have to fight Grun. Quite often, so it's basically a conversation between King Peladon and the Doctor. There's a little involvement from others, but it's chiefly those two. And quite often, you're going to get direction that's just camera points to person A, camera points to person B, and back and forth as they converse. But there's one shot where the camera's behind David Troughton, shooting over his shoulder at Pertwee talking. Probably 8 or 10 or 12 feet away. Mm-hmm. It was just framed really nicely and just something a little bit different than the norm.
Yeah, there's a couple of nice frame shots in Monster and in Hand of Fear, which we'll get to, that perhaps are in a similar thing. But anyway, Warren, your thoughts on Curse before, unless Chris has any final thoughts, we can move on to Monster. But first, Curse to Peladon, Warren. What are your memories of that?
I could nothing. Like basically what Chris said is what I remember. I remember it being exactly the same as Monster, essentially. Like they kind of blend into one story, at least up until me watching this, they did.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a good story. It's a good story. Chris Peladon, I quite like. I honestly, I thought the Hepesh death scene was really well played. I thought just the acting, the fact that it's all like sort of wordless nods, like when Hepesh is dead and, the Doctor walks into the room, and he just sort of like, looks over at Jo. She just, casts her eyes down and a slight nod and everything. It's just like, it was really well played. You could have really done that. Is he dead? No, yes, he's dead. And they could just play up the melodrama, but actually it was quite affecting at that time when it was all done with just looks, doing it with a look, as William Hartnell's Doctor said in An Adventure in Space and Time.
It's a bit of a contrast from the from the scene toward the end with the Doctor and Grun after. So Grun gets in a fight and gets hit over the head with a rock by Hepesh and gets knocked out. And then when he comes to, the Doctor's there, and Grun is mute, so he can't speak. So the Doctor has to carry the whole scene and do the whole what happened kind of thing, and it's so Lassie, and not in a good way.
Yeah,
the Doctor's like, "Who did this to you?" And then Grun sketches out an H on the dirt. He's like, "H, Hepesh." And then how many soldiers were there?
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Many."
Mm-hmm.
It just, that was a little cringy and labored, but.
Yep, mute giant bodyguards. That's the trend.
But speaking of Grun, just one other thing, like when the Doctor's told he's going to have to fight Grun, there's a just to make him look big and impressive. There's a shot of I don't know if the camera's down or if the actor is up or whatever, but Grun basically at like chest level or stomach level, where the top of the frame is like his exaggerated height to make him look really, really, really daunting, and that looked good.
I believe, according to the info text, I think that was actually the cameraman's own suggestion, which speaks a lot to Lennie Mayne's open directing style. He would take advice and take ideas from other people and say, yeah, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's use that. He's not like one of those directors, like say a Morris Barry or something like that, who says, nope, we are doing this. This is the way I'm doing it. I'm hitting my director's baton on this music stand, and we are going to direct this the way I do it. No, he had a sort of a free and open thing when it came to directing. Maybe that's the Australian approach. Maybe all Australians did it that way. I don't know.
Apparently he's also credited with adding the cloak to Alpha Centauri.
Yes, because
so that rather than looking like a giant green dick,
yep.
Alpha Centauri
I was trying to dance around that, but okay.
Looks like a dick in a cloak.
That's what it was. Yep, and then and the legendary outtake that everyone always says, but I'll mention it here, when they were doing rehearsals, and he wasn't getting a big enough reaction when Agador rushes into the room, and so he says, he's supposed to go in and say, "Holy flaming cow!" It's a thing, and okay, and everyone does it, lines up for the rehearsal, and everyone in sync. Once Agador enters the room, "Holy flaming cow!" they all said, because they thought it was funny. Warren, Monster of Peladon, you watched this one, all 6 episodes. You lost the coin toss. So what were your overall abiding memories of this?
I'm glad I was looking at directing, because, if I was just watching it as a show to enjoy, maybe I wouldn't. But I didn't mind picking out the directing stuff. Some of the stuff Chris touched on, like the overhead shots, which I assume are a mix of practical, because he's got very little space to work in. He's got to get some shots that aren't the same old stuff over and over. And also, like in the throne room, it kind of works because it gives it more of this is a royal thing happening kind of a feel, which I thought was kind of nice. I've had it all this by episodes, but I'll just jump around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good compositions. I noticed just watching, I'm like, he's always got in a 4:3 space, very good composing happening. No matter who's on screen, they all have got their space. The geography is all fairly well mapped out for something that's, throwaway TV stuff, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Alpha Centauri, there's 2 instances. Like, first off, Alpha Centauri is patently ridiculous, but they don't really play her up. They kind of everybody around her, him, them.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say them.
Yeah, let's do them. Yeah,
them. Basically says, even though the doctor calls Alpha Centauri old chap, I'm like, well, this is confusing. So them. I'm just gonna go with them. Obviously completely ridiculous. But Sarah has scenes with Alpha Centauri. It would be so easy to play it up, but Elizabeth Sladen doesn't, which I think I wrote iconic next to her for doing that. There's even a scene where Alpha Centauri is on the radio to, I think, the Federation, and the little Lego hand is, and it's all played very straight, and I'm just like, points for trying, guys, because there's only so not silly this can be, but they did their best, I think.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a. This might just be down to Lennie Mayne getting good performances out of his actors. How Stuart Fell, who's in the body of Alpha Centauri, and then Izan Churchman, who's doing the voice live in studio, and yet they are like more or less in sync with what they're doing. This is basically a stunt person and a voice actor, and they are combining their forces to give as believable a performance out of that costume as you possibly could. I think
And also, you could see more of his theater background, or at least his giving leeway to theater background, because the guy who plays the Vega, the dude from Vega, who's like Dr. Zoidberg in satire form, is an even dumber costume than Alpha Centauri,
right?
And is really doing it for all it's worth.
Yeah,
but it kind of works. I don't know how it does, but it does. There's a great shot in, I think, episode 4, where the Ice Warriors are attacking the miners, and you see it from inside the helmet of the Ice Warrior.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's pretty cool. That's not something you see very often in this kind of Doctor Who. Like, that would involve mounting the helmet onto the camera, and it's probably not as easy as it looks.
No. And you don't have the time for it. You got like 2 hours to get an episode in the can, and you got to like line this shot up and still do it.
I mean, it's just one shot, but it did look cool.
Yeah.
And then there's a few shots from below, so he's doing a lot with, he's doing the standard stuff, obviously, but he does try to get as much as he can with what little he's got to work with, because he's got literally the same sets as last time, and not a whole lot else to work with. I swear that episode 5 uses the exact same Agador footage as episode 1.
You might be right.
Because who would check him on that in 1973 or 4, whatever this is.
Right.
And then just to close out episode 6, there's some, correct me if I'm wrong, Mirror-Lon.
Oh, absolutely. It's because it's guns. Ice Warrior guns are always Mirror-Lon. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think. I don't think the Ice Warriors fired their gun apart from Arcturus getting getting blown up in at the beginning of episode 4. I think that's the only time that Ice Warriors ever fired guns in Curse. So, yeah. Because of course they were the good guys. There were a couple of good zooms there. So there is one that was pointed out in the info text, but I noted it. It's where Sarah and Alpha Centauri are in the communications room, and they're looking at a monitor, and on that monitor they see the Doctor in the Agador room behind through a door, looking out through the gap in the door at Eckersley at the camera. So the camera in the communications room zooms into that monitor, on which another live shot of the camera shooting Pertwee and Donald G on that set are zooming in to actual Pertwee. That is a remarkable amount of coordination for 2 live cameras to do in one single shot, and they did it. I thought it was great.
And also, you always have to wonder what kind of visual distortion or feedback that might cause. And obviously didn't have an issue with that.
Yeah, I like how Mayne would include little jokes in the camera script and stuff, just to keep everything sort of light and funny, and the camera skills. So the camera people were also there because Lennie Mayne was a coordinator, a dancing coordinator, and let's face it, moving the cameras around is
essentially
a coordination feat in and of itself, making sure that all the cameras get to the shots that they need on the different sets, because a lot of them are actually shot basically as live. We cut to this set and then we instantly go over to this one, because they did that sometimes even in the 1970s, where they're shooting from one set to another on the same take, essentially, like that. And it takes a lot of coordination and effort. So good job, all TV directors of the 1960s and 70s, let's face it. And good job, Lennie Mayne. Yeah. Was that all you had there, Warren, for notes for Monster?
Other than that, random observations, like when Sarah Jane Smith says, I can't think why when the Doctor says I want to come back. And I wrote in capital letters, Sarah is right. So Azixir is a delightful jerk. He's just great. I just love him. He's just such a
Azixir is approaching like Panto villain, but I love him.
I kind of love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Donald G, for some reason, reminds me a lot of actually Tom Baker. I think Donald G actually wears the same outfit that Tom Baker does in Genesis of the Daleks. It's right. There's a familiarity, isn't there? Even in old,
really does look a lot like
him. Erica and I were watching the first episode of a show called Born and Bred, which was one of Chris Chibnall's first show running efforts in the early 2000s, and Donald G is in that, and he looks there in 2002 or whatever year it was, like Tom Baker does in 2002. Like they even aged similarly. It's kind of
weird,
freaky, and yeah.
According to IMDb, Born and Bred is the last show that Donald G worked on.
There, died just this past year.
Yeah, about a year ago, almost to the day.
He's quite good in this. He's fun.
Yeah.
He goes from sort of technocrat to arch villain / mustache twirler near the end there.
Yeah. I thought, I actually quite like. I like the there's a nice scene there where when he gets into that arch villain, why it wasn't until you two, why I should turn around, and you think he's going to shoot Sarah in the back. And then the camera just pushes in on Liz Sladen, and she's looking terrified, thinks she's going to get shot in the back of the head here and die. And then the noise is just the door closing, and I thought that was really well done. Mm-hmm. It just sort of we focus on her fear and everything, but actually he's just back out of the room. But I thought it was an effective scene. I thought, but yeah, I enjoyed this one a little more than I thought I would. Monster of Peladon, it gets kind of dumped on a lot, and sure, it is kind of long, 6 episodes, but there's stuff
and more of the same, right? So
a little more of the same, and there's funny looking miners and stuff, but the Ice Warriors don't come until episode 3 or 4 or whatever it is. So it's kind of like the Sontarans in Invasion of Time. They sort of break up the 6-part monotony a little bit, and yeah. I think it's worthy another watch, and especially for the direction of Lennie Mayne. I think it sort of makes it sing a little more than perhaps it would if an Alan Bromley was directing it or something like that, which of course would never happen. Any other thoughts on Monster of Peladon, or indeed any of the Peladon stories, before we wrap up the first part of this Miniscope?
one random thought is that there's the old grizzled miner who's the ally, and then there's the young in quotes, he only looks 40 miner.
Right.
I love the lack of trust completely. The old miner takes off to whatever, 2 seconds later the other guy's like, well, we're not doing that. We're doing this. I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Just no subtlety whatsoever.
Yep. Oh, we're fighting the fight of Agador, whatever. I can't remember his name. Etis, that was his name, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's hard to keep track of him.
Played by Ralph Watson. Yeah. Oh, we had fun watching that as a commentary many moons ago. Commentary now that would perhaps be seen as insensitive now. Anyway,
very much so.
Well, actually, that's sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to ask you, Warren. Have you watched Monsters since we did the
commentary back in like 2009 or whatever it was?
No, other than this, no. And I hadn't even thought of the commentary. No, but mentioning the Ice Warriors, I did pointedly avoid my previous name for that particular Ice Warrior. Having said that, my main thought looking at the Ice Warriors now, knowing what we do from Modern Who, is that those guys are they're like iguanas in there. What's going on?
Yeah. Yep. Very warm. Very warm. And indeed, that was the last appearance of the Ice Warriors in Classic Who.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. And the last Brian Hales story as well.
And the last Brian Hales, in quotation marks, Terrence Dix pretty much did a paid one rewrite. Anyway, well, that's it. That's it for our first half then of our Lennie Mayne Miniscope. The Peladon stories are in the books. Next time, we'll cover the second half, which is the Three Doctors and the last story that Lennie Mayne did. Indeed, the last story that Sarah Jane Smith did, The Hand of Fear. So join us, won't you, for that on the next Radio Free Skaro. Until then, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.